Hello everyone. Now last patch I ranked Ineffa decks to be mediocre at best. But this patch we have gotten Aino and more surprisingly we have gotten the Not Cry resonance cards, and with those I have cooked up a deck which is right here. Actually, let's not look it from there, let's look from there, that's better. I have cooked up this deck right here with the main focus being in having as many of the new cards as possible. Now I can say this deck compared to last patch, Lunar-charged has definitely gotten above, like it's definitely stronger than last patch. Like if you have seen my previous Ineffa video, it was simply just Verena instead of Aino, and otherwise the deck was very much the same. Well, even with the action cards, of course. Well, okay, admittedly there's action cards wise there's a lot more changes, but we don't need to care about that too much. The point is the deck, the idea behind the deck hasn't changed that much. We are still going for double hydro because we need survivability for the electric shock to ramp up over time to actually take out our opponent's characters, since we lack damage from all other sources when playing Lunar-charged. But as I was saying, this newest patch added a Not Cry resonance cards, and I can say like these are pretty damn good resonance cards. The Ascended Gleam, which is basically the Woven die, but of course they couldn't just add, you know, another Hydro Woven you can have, so they added a cost reduction card. This is very nice card. I mean, compared to a Woven, which is an instant +1 die, this is an instant -1 discount to one card in your hand and another at the top of your deck. Maybe if you haven't used this quick tip, the top of the deck is the first card in your deck that doesn't have the price of 0. Meaning if your top deck card is a 0 cost, it jumps over that and looks for the first card that actually costs dice to play. So you are guaranteed full value out of Ascended Gleam as long as your deck has a card that costs more than 0 dice. And the second resonance card, Moon and Homeland. After you play the next card this round, next round create a copy of the card. And it is indeed the very next card you play after this. You play this, you play Strategize, you get Strategize next round. You play this, you play Strategize, you play Genius Upgrade, you get Strategized next round. It is the very next card you play after this card. Only really notable thing to know, once again, if you haven't played with this card yourself, discounts, price increases, electric shocks, invalidations, nothing of those will carry over when copying the card. Meaning if you play a card with invalidation, if you play Moon and Homeland and then you play Strategize that has invalidation, next round you will get a normal Strategize. And yes, it does copy cards even if you play an invalidated card, Moon and Homeland still copies that card. Yeah, those are the resonance cards, very strong, and to be honest, the whole Lunar-charged is currently carried by these cards. Then we have the Genius's upgrade technique. This is Aino's go-to card, since if you didn't know, Aino has a very handy passive skill. Whenever empowerment is attached to your card, once per round you gain 1 energy. This is basically similar to how concentrated beasts were back in the day where you played an energy Bone Conjure energy block, your concentrate beast would immediately gain 1 energy. This is very similar to that, but considering it is just one character, it's much more balanced. Nonetheless, it's very good to use if you are running Aino, and especially if you are running Aino's talent card. You should always use Genius Upgrade Technique, because it's basically just a free energy for Aino, and once you have Aino's Burst out, it is a free usage for Aino's Burst. And the last, actually, it's the second last new card, we have the Cleaning Time. This is simply for every status applied to your hand, create 1 random basic elemental die, maximum 2 dice, and this can be both positive and negative effects. So invalidation counts, cost increase and decrease count, electric shock count, untunable count, any status effect, and you get a dice from that. They don't actually do much in this deck, but like said, I wanted to add as many new cards as possible into this deck. And last new card we have Lepine Pauline, which is a free cost, a nice little support card. Immediately when played, you get to choose an investment plan, which is either healing, draw cards, or elemental die. If you decide the healing, you take damage and then you get more or less healing. It's better to show this than to try to explain. If you draw, you discard 1 card and then draw more or less cards, and with the elemental die you lose 1 die and you gain more or less dice back in the future rounds. About these investment plans, I haven't actually tried. Healing, of course, you have to have a character that takes the piercing damage. You will always take the piercing damage when you pick the healing. For the draw effect, I do not know if you have an empty hand and you choose the draw effect. I would believe it works. Like, if you have an empty hand, you play the draw effect, even though you don't discard anything, you should still get the in the future you draw cards effect from Pauline. Same thing for elemental dice. If you have 0 dice, I'm still pretty sure that picking the elemental dice works. Like, it doesn't say, hold on, you cannot do that because you don't have elemental dice. But like I said, I haven't tested those 2 theories out, but I'm pretty sure it works like that. And I can say about Lepine Pauline this much. Which of the investment plans you want to choose depends very much on your deck. The healing is good for almost any deck. The draw card is sometimes good, sometimes bad, but for example, in a pep deck where you want to discard and draw as much as possible, it's very good to always pick the draw version. As for the elemental die, at first glance you might think, oh, this is good for setup decks, but actually no, because the outcome is randomized. You don't know whether you will get 1 die for the next round, 2 dice after 2 rounds, or 3 dice after 3 rounds. Because it's randomized, you cannot really plan your setup unless you play Lepine Pauline as your first setup action, and then you plan from there how much you want to do her setup. To put it simply, Lepine Pauline is very good because of the healing. Healing is her best thing to do. Draw power is second best. Elemental die, you almost never want to do that unless you need to empty your hand and you happen to have 1 or 2 dice left over. You might as well go for that. But yeah, last thing I want to talk about is actually something we can talk about in the game, so I'll see you there. Now for this first game, quick little note. My opponent will do absolutely nothing to counterplay electric shock in this match. So while I explain about the game plan, you get to, at least in this match, you get to see how slow it is actually to ramp up the electric shock damage. and why double hydro is almost always necessary for your electric shock or lunar charge decks in general. You can see here, this is once again why the medical equipment, especially for this deck, is very good. It has synergy with our Veteran's Visage and Fortress of Merobead, getting us stacks for all of those.
Defensive mode engaged.
And quickly about Lepine Pauline, you can see here, after you've chosen one of those plans, I quickly went over earlier, you get either one to, should I say, you need brokers either 1, 2 or 3, and it's for, you know, next round, 2 rounds after this, 3 rounds after this. The more progress it wants, the bigger the payoff for waiting is. To put it simply, it's very good to play usually round 1, round 2, but after round 3 onwards, if you aren't playing a star deck, it's usually not worth it to play Lepine Pauline, because the likelihood that you get actual value out of her at that point is not there. Quickly about the game plan of this deck. Round 1, all you want to do is Ineffa skill. If your cards and dice allow 10 going for Tulpa normal attack or Aino skill, Tulpa skill round 1 usually isn't worth it, because it means both Brigitta and the Thundercloud we would get both disappear in the end phase, and then round 2 we would need to re-summon Brigitta with Ineffa. So round 1, it's perfectly fine to go for a Tulpa normal attack or Aino skill, or in some cases Aino normal attack, but if you need to go for a normal attack, it's better to go for Tulpa's normal attack for that hydro application and the possibility of an Lunar-charged happening. Round 2, usually whether you have the Genius's upgrade card or not, go to Tulpa or go to Aino. If you have the card, go to Aino, because you can play that card and easily get energy for Aino. If you don't have it, go for Tulpa and start stacking up those electric shocks. Since I didn't really have any good cards to play here, I simply went for a Tulpa skill and a normal attack there at the end. And like I said, I think it is from this point onward my opponent will start to do absolutely nothing to counterplay the electric shocks. Of course, considering there's double invalidation coming quite often to their side of the field, it's no surprise.
Preparing for dust.
But let's quickly talk about Aino. Now, last patch I made, I had Furina here. And Furina was there for the Hydro Summon, as well as the damage buff from her Burst. Now, why is Aino actually a better choice than Furina, at least? Firstly, of course, the Nordcry Resonance cards. Secondly, Aino's skill, when you have Empowerment, deal 3 Hydro damage. This is already very good, since last patch the biggest problem was that if you had Furina, or even if you had, like, I think Kokomi Hydro Tulpa Ineffa was considered to be the best Lunar-charged deck last patch. But this patch, I dare say this is the best. At least in my opinion, this is the best Lunar-charged deck you can play. The characters, that is, the action cards, you can debate on. I'm not too sure about those. But why is Aino better than Furina at the very least? Because the skill actually deals damage. Consider something like Furina. Furina's normal attack, you almost never want to play that. Furina's burst, you can play every now and again, but even that only deals 2 damage if you don't have any damage increased cards or effects. And that is the very reason why I had Furina. I needed some damage increase so that outside of electric shock, which the
Defensive
opponent could
mode
very
engaged.
easily counterplay, there would be an alternative source of damage. Well, with this deck, that alternate source of damage comes from Aino's elemental skill. And, well, Aino's elemental burst doesn't really add damage, because of course Furina's summon, for example, deals 2 hydro damage if your characters have enough HP, which is the exact same as Aino's burst. By the way, with this deck it's very easy to go for hydro turbo burst. It's semi-consistent. You either go for Aino burst or you go for turbo burst with this deck. And of course turbo burst is one of our best sources of damage. But back to Aino. More precisely why Aino is better than Furina is Aino's talent card. Talent card which gives us +2 reaction damage to our electro-charged, lunar-charged or bloom reactions. And because you can get it, like Aino's burst, like I said, if you get the Genius's upgrade card, Aino's burst is much faster to get compared to Furina. And that's how we kind of balance out the damage output. So where previously I would say go for Furina burst for extra damage, now it's fish for Aino's talent card for extra damage. And by the way, the better game plan for this deck, we have it right here by the way, you can see it as the deal bust, deal 2 damage. Also the talent card makes it so that whenever you deal any of these reactions, Lunar-charged, electro-charged or bloom, empowerment is added, meaning Aino's passive skill will activate, meaning that when you have the talent card out and there's Aino's burst summon on the field, the burst summon will remain forever as long as it has more than 1 usage in the end phase. If the summon has only 1 usage, for example, if there was no half tulpa currently in play, we would only have Thundercloud and the Coolio Jet's Ducky. If only those 2 summons were on the field, and if the Coolio Jet's Ducky only had 1 usage, the talent card, the Aino's passive skill, would not activate before the summon is discarded from the summon field. So basically you need to make sure that you do that reaction during the round, or your summons do the reaction before your Coolio Jet's Ducky activates. Anyway, on to the next match. Now that last match wasn't really anything special, like I said, it was only really here so I have a good basic boring match where I can explain all the stuff. So now let's look more closely to the game plan with this first matchup. Albedo Plunge. Now this should definitely be my opponent's victory. This match like this is a really hard matchup, because like I said, even though the new resonance cards are very good, even though Aino is very nice to use in these Lunar-charged decks, highly aggressive decks like Albedo Plunge are very bad matchups. By the way, there you saw I played the Moon and Homeland, then the Genius upgrade card. This is a very good round 1 play to make, because it allows you to get a second Genius's upgrade for round 2, meaning you get full energy for Aino round 2 for free. I was considering tuning parametric and doing a normal attack here. By the way, first mistake from my friend here, like, I don't know, actually, I'm kind of curious. Okay, they had free, why didn't they go for a second normal attack round 1? That's already a big mistake on my opponent's part. They should have gone for another normal attack round 1. Unless their dice was... Actually, we cannot see that anymore. But yeah, in this matchup I can actually kind of spoil my opponent makes many mistakes. And that was definitely the first one of them. They didn't go for a second normal attack. Though, if they had awful dice there, then it's reasonable and understandable that they only did one. But here, like I said, Genius's upgrade comes back. We can play this round to get full energy for Aino. Of course we go for toolbox skill here with the Veteran's Visage to get some dice and most importantly cards. Now my opponent unsurprisingly takes out Hydro Tulpa. Very sad, but with this deck Hydro Tulpa is actually the #1 character to get rid of. If you need to sacrifice someone, it's usually Hydro Tulpa you want to sacrifice. Why? Because once again, Aino's talent card. We want that damage increase, we want that basically infinite summon. It's better to keep Aino and Ineffa alive, and Ineffa of course because her passive skill and talent card combo are the carrying things in this deck. Looking for the talent card, unfortunately we do not get it, but you can see here once again, play the card, you get energy, and you can immediately burst. Very cool. Also, when you have the opportunity to play multiple Genius's upgrade cards, it's usually good to keep one card with the empowerment in your hand, simply so that your Aino skill deals that 3 damage instead of the 2. Now here once again, they changed Flowing Rings for Ayaka 10, they go to Varessa. Why? Why didn't you just play these on to Varessa? Odd things to do here. And once again, they are left over with dice. We can actually go check. Well, invalidated Heavy Strike. Fair enough, you cannot play that. But like once again, that was now a second mistake, assuming they had good dice round 1. And once again, there was the possibility maybe they had card half full dice. Actually, they did make another mistake that last round. They had that +1 die, they could have switched back to Varessa to activate Apex Drive and reaction damage from the Solar Isotoma, and this deals. Yeah, Aino would have been actually taken out there if they had switched back. So you can, if you didn't already guess, I'm kind of winning this match simply because my opponent deals multiple mistakes here. But no offense to Mattis here. Let's just assume they may not have that much experience playing Albedo Plunge. But you can see here, it's still looking very bad for me, though now once again going for Varessa's skill is kind of odd. Why not, you know, Ayaka normal attack when you have the Flowing Rings? Then a burst. Like, you should have gone for a normal attack, so let's assume my opponent here isn't that experienced with Albedo Plunge, you know. Let's be polite here. We shan't make assumptions that they are simply bad. But funny enough, thanks to the invalidation, which is by the way, if you get this matchup, the best thing you can hope for is double Mirror Beat round 1. Otherwise, you most likely will always lose unless your opponent makes as many mistakes as mine does in this game. But not just against Albedo Plunge, but against any highly aggressive deck, you want the double Fortress of Mirror Beat as soon as possible. Of course, in this match I could have played the Moon and Homeland to copy Mirror Bead, but I kind of considered like, okay, I already have that one Mirror Bead, it's probably better to actually, you know, deal some damage from the Aino's burst. It's like a better choice, but you can see I've had enough time here to draw many of my cards. Now I was actually assuming that okay, yeah, there's nothing more I can do, that's why I bursted, because of course for survivability the skill would have been better. But I honestly was thinking that okay, there's nothing I can do anymore. And surely by this point they have enough cards that they can actually, you know, finish off the game, despite all those mistakes. But we can actually, let's quickly pause. We can actually see, this is why the invalidation.
Present.
This already limits how much my opponent can do by very much.
Down.
And of course the same applies for any match with an aggressive opponent. You want those Fortress of Merobids, and honestly I hope this card is going to get a nerf like sooner rather than later, because any strategy that involves healing, it's nowadays good. Just run Fortress of Merobid in it, because why not? Like any strategy, if it has healing. Like even this, I have like macaronis, of course, thanks to, also because of maidens, I have macaronis, but Fortress of Merobid is just that good. Now here, this is what I was talking about, wanting to keep that one card with empowerment, because it would give us that necessary +1 damage that our skill would have finished off Ayaka here, but unfortunately I had to tune multiple cards earlier this game, and we can see the invalidation clutch once again. They are desperately looking for anything, but they cannot get anything. It's the invalidation clutch that wins us the game. And you can see, like, despite how many mistakes my opponent did make in that match, it was still that close that it was, probably thanks to just getting that double Meropede, that I won the game. Of course, it's the probability of whether the gladiators would have got an invalidation or not, but let's get into the next game. Now for this next match we have a grab matchup, which I wanted to include to show that, you know, against Stahl decks this is still very good. Of course, Stahl, like already last patch, Stahl was the best matchup for your Lunar-charged decks, because Stahl decks usually don't want to empty their hand immediately. Stahl decks usually contain, you know, expensive cards like Tenacity of the Mililetti, Marajusi Hunters, cards like that. And when you get the untunable invalidation, cost increase, electric shock combo onto those cards, it's very, very good for you. Of course, in this matchup, my opponent, they know what they are doing. They are against an Lunar-charged deck, so they empty their hand as soon as possible. Of course, double, well, actually Nimstream is kind of an odd artifact to see with grab, because like what adventure is worth going for with grab? Maybe actually Tonatium is, yeah, I suppose Tonatium can work with grab, but you can see once again they empty their hand very, very bad for me, because of course that limits the amount of damage I can do very, very much. You can once again see the Genesis upgrade giving us energy for Aino. Of course in this match, because I can see my opponent, they clearly know what they are doing, I want to fish for Aino's talent. And I can actually say, like, even though in this deck I only have one Aino talent, it's probably worth it to actually run double Aino talents.
Aino?
If you can. Like, maybe even like take out one, well, maybe not Ineffa talent. Maybe take out one Mystic Soup and add another Aino talent, because it's just, it's so much value if you burst Aino with talent. But you can see here, because of the White Glove and Fisherman, they draw one extra card in the end phase, and now that card got Electric Shock, and actually we can once again quickly check. You can see Electric Shock untunable. Now unfortunately no cost increase, because I didn't play the Ineffa's talent last round. This means my opponent simply plays the card. And once again, there is no cards in their hand, we have to just rely on mostly our summon damage to take out our opponent. No talent card, but luckily we do have the arcane card. Of course we do play the Ineffa talent this time to have it ready for the next time our opponent makes a small mistake like that, which hopefully would allow us to actually get the electric shocks going. We get the talent card, very nice. We also play the Veteran's Wizards for free thanks to the Memento Lens from the Genius's upgrade. And by the way, this also works to showcase, like, sometimes the cards you get from the Genius's upgrade, it's worth to play them at times. For example, in this case, Memento Lens discounting Veteran's Wizards, which was already played this match, and Loomstone draws that are talent card here, so
Don't get too close.
it is worth to sometimes play this, though most of the time you simply tune them.
Warm up complete.
But every now and again.
Defensive mode engaged.
And here at the end, of course, spending the rest of my die, going for the HP once again. Can actually, yeah, here you can see now is the progress is just 1, we get only 2 HP. Unlike earlier where we saw the progress reaches 3, we got 6 HP. And if round 2, I think it's 2 progress and 4 HP, which is I consider that to be the best, of course. There plus 3 free HP, because you need to remember it deals 1 damage to your characters, so it is the amount of healing you get minus 1 that is the actual benefit of the medical plan. Once again, my opponent empties their hand, no surprise at this point.
Annihilation mode.
I of course want to take out Toma, because Toma has the artifact, so it's actually worth it to get him out as soon as possible. Now, why didn't I go for a normal attack with Ineffa if I want to take out Toma? Because I was kind of suspecting that my opponent wouldn't switch to grab anyway. I mean, look at what they have played, like Favonius Cathedral on a crap deck, Tarot Marrow and Treasure on a crap deck. I mean, yes, they can kind of work if you want to, for example, late game burst crap multiple times, but yeah. Anyway, you can see here, talent card plus toolbox burst, we deal some good damage to grab. And yes, I am here right now sacrificing Tulpa once again, because the Aino's talent card damage buff is just simply more important than keeping Tulpa alive. Especially now that we got off the Tulpa burst already. There's no reason to keep it alive any longer, since we would anyway take quite a lot of damage from the next normal attack my opponent makes. Once again, quite the surprising arcane card choice. Also very surprising that they didn't tune, for example, Archer this round, and instead played both cards. Remember, they do have their Nim stream, and all this time they haven't been able to get any adventure on the field, because they have kept their support
Installation
zone
chamber
full.
deployed.
Unsurprisingly, I just go for as many attacks I can. I'm spending the woe and die there. Lipin Pauline once again, the healing plan. Now we see the progress 2, meaning 2 rounds, and HP plus 4. And you can see the crab is slowly being taken out. Mostly, dare I say, because they simply don't have tenacity on grab. I mean, they have the grab talent, so with that combo this match would have been much much more difficult, but at this stage, like even Serene, their deck is truly... This is one of those guys which I think like they just look at crap, they consider that crap can carry every matchup for them that isn't
Ultimatum protocol.
Wolflord or... Why can I not remember the name when I need it? There's the other guy who deals piercing damage. Anyway,
Yay!
probably one of those guys who thinks that simply playing crap will win them every match. That is a hard counter, but as you can see, to an unoptimized crap deck, it's no difficulty. And even if it was an optimized crap deck, once again, all you really need is that cost increase untunable onto like 3 cost tenacity that gets cost increase to far more than the opponent is willing to spend on it. And based on luck, yes, but you can absolutely win style matchups. Those are still the best matchups for your Lunar-charged. But I have one last game for today. And for the last game we have a Skirk deck. Now of course Skirk has been nerfed. Now the Void Rifts are considered combat actions. This kind of makes it so that I think, like personally, I would rank the Beidou Burst into Skirk normal attack spam is now the overall best Skirk deck in my opinion. But even though the Void Rifts have been changed, I still think like Jaska Skirk decks are still very strong.
Installation chamber deployed.
It is just that they are slower and it's easier for the opponent to react to the Skirk players' moves. Like it's much easier to tell when your opponent is going for a Skirk burst compared to what it previously was. Now double talent round 1 is very nice. Unfortunately we don't have any Geniuses upgrade here, so we kind of have to wait with that Aino burst. Now my opponent is of course playing Dahlia, so we can assume they are simply going for frozen reactions. As we can see here, they have made quite a clear setup here to, you know, a Nemo bullet will freeze both Aino and Ineffa. But of course I will be switching to Aino here next round, most likely. After one Tulpa skill, if I remember correctly. Except with that dice I'm quite unsure. Copying the strategize to get some more card draws. After all, looking at my hand, it's not quite good. We go for a simple normal attack, which this was a clear mistake. I remember I forgot to play the talent card from Ineffa before that normal attack. But you can see, luckily they played their Lost Legacies in the Sand Arcane card, meaning that had I played the talent card, they would have actually gotten more value out of that Arcane card. Now, of course, unfortunately, they are able to freeze both Aino and Ineffa, but it's no trouble at all here.
Yay! Playtime!
Because I don't want them to, you know, play Void Rift there to possibly swirl. I switch, go for the talent card, and unfortunately have to end my round because once again switching Tulpa here wouldn't, or Ineffa here wouldn't really do much good for me. Tulpa would just be a free swirl for them, and well, with Ineffa I have no rush to actually resummon. Of course I would like to resummon Ineffa this round. Now once again, my opponent does have their own version of the deck with Serene. Like for an optimized Skirk deck I don't see any reason to play Serene, but let a person enjoy what they enjoy. Now it's quite clear they are going for a Skirk Burst, but we can see it is only 4 damage currently, and if they play a Void Rift, I can just Hydro Tulpa to once again tank the damage, since we don't really need Hydro Tulpa, but because the damage was so low, it is just the Macaroni Maidens and Hydro Resonance, and we are all good here. Unfortunately, no Geniuses upgrade, and of course I don't really want to play Lost Legacies in the sand because I would lose the talent card in that case. So kind of playing around the Tobias goodwill, hoping that we don't lose any important cards here. And in the end I end up tuning just to make sure that I don't lose, for example, my Arcane or the talent card. But for the last dice I decide to take that gamble, and unfortunately my Arcane card gets discarded. But you can see we got some little electric shocks in their hand. We can actually go see which one. This was probably here like already. Now that one has cost increase. It's, to put it simply, it's looking starting to look very good, because of course invalidation would be the best for the Void Rifts, but cost increase is also very good. Of course, when the Void Rifts cost for our opponent to play, that means they are less capable of actually spamming multiple of them. Finally got the Geniuses upgrade, and of course because we now have that 1 energy for Aino already, that means we can burst this round. Now, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, more is what I meant to say, they freeze Ineffa. Now I of course know there is the real chance that they can, do another talent card for Skirk, or I mean, simply they can just discard another Hydro Bullet to freeze Aino, but I was also suspecting that they might have another Skirk talent at this point, so unfortunately they did have both of that, but now I'm kind of just banging on the fact that they don't have any more dice or Hydro Bullets to freeze Aino, but unfortunately they do, so nothing I can honestly do here. I switched to Tulpa so that the Hydro from Dahlia's skill, more precisely Dahlia's skill, deals damage instead of giving them a free switch. That's why I did that move right there. And of course I wanted to tank whatever damage they might do with Hydro Tulpa. Once again, because there is really no reason to keep Hydro Tulpa alive if you need to sacrifice someone. Jaska gets taken out by the summon nice and clean, and now we can simply just burst to Dahlia, and now then they'll have nothing but Skirk, and at this point you can see they only have 4 cards in hand, and 2 of those cards were in their hand when all of my summons procced, meaning that they should have 2 cards with Untunable. Well, they have 1 card with Untunable and 1 with cost increase, but main point here is that they have I know there's a chance that they don't have that good dice, and they are unable to do everything. Of course, Skirk has that many stacks. I know that if they decide to burst, Aino is out of the game, which is why I simply do a skill. Of course, I'm kind of also, you can see I have the makings to go for the Ineffa Elemental Burst, and I do just that, and it of course will win me the game.
Annihilation mode.
Like so.
Damn,
So yes, last patch I ranked Lunar-charged as a mediocre, mid-tier strategy, a niche thing that works if you are lucky. Now it's how should I put it. It's still not a great strategy, but it's slightly better. Like I don't know. Like if this was one of those imagine one of those tier list videos. Last batch I would have said Ineffa is a beast. Like what is it, like SAB CD something like that. I don't know how long they lists usually go on, but I would have said like Ineffa is a B tier strategy. Now I would say it's between A and B tier. It's not a noticeable buff to the Lunar-charged, as it's more that thanks to the new cards, thanks to the new changes, there are a lot more stall type decks, because I mean there's the Bloom Blessing, which is you get +2 max HP every round. That kind of says, hey, play Bloom Stall, and when you play Stall you have expensive cards. Once again, Lunar-charged is good when the opponent has expensive cards, or simply a lot of cards at draw power, because they are looking for something specific. Same applies for the Pyro Crystallized Blessing. Everyone who plays double Pyro Crystallize is mostly playing double Geo decks, and double Geo decks tend to be mid-range to stall decks. As such, once again, Lunar-charged is good against those decks because they are also on the slower side. But if your opponent plays a discard deck, you are still going to get your ass kicked. If your opponent plays a highly aggressive deck and they aren't making many mistakes and being very unlucky, you will get your ass kicked. Unless you happen to be very, very lucky. But to generalize, most of the time, if it's mid-range or stall, it's a good matchup for you. If it's aggro or discard, then it's bad for you. But yeah, that would be all for today. I'll see you all next time.